Hey everybody, this is Steve, and prayer doesn't need to be complicated. Prayer is an important part of our Christian lives, yet it's also difficult and confusing and hard to do. I keep hearing from people who want to pray more and can't, or people who want to start praying and don't really know where to begin. We hear a lot about the Jesus prayer, for instance, but we don't really get a lot of guidance about how to pray it, or how to use a prayer rope. Or we get our hands on a prayer book and get intimidated, flipping through the pages, seeing all the prayers, and there's no time and it's just too much. Well, take a deep breath. At times like these, it's really helpful to remember Father Thomas Hopko's third maxim of the Christian life. Pray as you can, not as you think you must. And for a concrete example of what that looks like, we can turn to the life of a man named Symeon. I read about Symeon in this book, Ascetics in the World. A monk on Mount Athos recommended it to me years ago, and I loved it. It's a collection of short biographies of regular people living remarkable lives of prayer and asceticism in the world. We sometimes associate prayer and asceticism with monasteries, but this book gives us insight into the lives of regular men and women, living in towns and cities just like you or I, who worked hard to live orthodoxy and unite themselves to Christ. As you can see, the original's in Greek, but an English translation is in the works and will be available very soon. And when it is, we'll definitely share a link. Of all the amazing stories in this book, my absolute favorite is one about a man named Symeon. Symeon was orphaned at a young age and was one of the hundreds of thousands of refugees who fled Asia Minor in 1922. He made his way to Greece and lived in a little hut, alone as a kid, and had to start working just to make enough money to survive. He was a really simple person. He never got an education, never even learned to read. Yet despite all the hardships he endured in his life, he always held on to his faith in the Lord. He never really learned how to pray, and of course he couldn't read any prayers, so every morning on his way to work, he would stop by a little church. He'd reverently take off his hat and walk up to the icon screen and stand before the icon of Christ and say, "Good morning, my Christ. It's me, Symeon. Help me to earn my daily bread." And every night, after a hard day of work, he'd pass by the church again and stand before the icon of Christ and say, "Good evening, my Christ. It's me, Symeon. Thank you for helping me again today." When he got older, Symeon got married and had 2 kids, but as if his life wasn't difficult enough, he lost his entire family to tuberculosis in 1950, leaving him alone again. Yet he still held on to his faith, greeting Christ every morning and thanking him every evening. When Symeon was an old man, he got sick and went to the hospital. After about a month, a nurse realized that no one was visiting him and asked whether he had any family to come see him. Symeon said he didn't, but that it was okay, because Christ came to visit him every morning and every evening. Every morning he would visit and say, "Good morning, Symeon. I am Christ. Be patient." And every evening he would come and visit and say, "Good evening, Symeon. I am Christ. Be patient." Every morning and every evening, just like Symeon used to visit Christ in the church. The nurse thought that this was odd, so she called her spiritual father to come visit Symeon. The priest was concerned that maybe the old man was imagining things, so he asked him about it, and Symeon said that Christ visited him that very morning, except this time he said something a little different. "Good morning, Symeon. I am Christ. Be patient. In 3 days, early in the morning, I will come take you to be near me." As the priest spoke to Symeon and began to learn about his life, he realized that he was a pious, kind, gentle, and saintly man, and he began to wonder if maybe he really was seeing Christ after all. On the 3rd day, early in the morning, the priest was again visiting Symeon, and while they were talking, Symeon suddenly froze and cried out, "Christ is here!" And then he peacefully passed away, just like the Lord said he would. On the surface, there was nothing remarkable about Symeon. He was poor, he couldn't read, he wasn't educated. He just seemed like a nice old man who went to church a lot. But there was a depth to Symeon that's hard to describe. His heart was a place of peace and gentleness and love, full of God's grace. Even though his prayer rule was only a few seconds long, a few moments in the morning and the evening, it was a critical part of his day, even more important than breathing or eating. And those few moments, because they were so simple and honest and heartfelt, were genuine moments of communion with Christ. And his brief, simple prayer transformed the entire day, Because even though he only stood before the icon for a few seconds, in reality, he stood in the presence of Christ all day. His life was one constant, ongoing prayer, an offering of prayer and humility and love to the Lord. We often intimidate ourselves out of praying, or get overwhelmed by the complexity of prayer, fearing that we have to pray everything if we're going to pray anything. Yet in Symeon, we see somebody who embodied Father Hopko's maxim, somebody who prayed as he could, not as he thought he must, someone who allowed God to take the simplicity he was capable of and transform it into the depth of a saintly life. So talk to your spiritual father about a prayer rule, and no matter how simple it may be, stick with it. Don't be anxious about what you think you could or should do, but instead, just be earnest in the prayer that you do offer. A simple prayer, when it's spoken from the heart and put at the center of our lives, can really open us up to God's grace. So let's be the bee and pray simply so we can pray always. Be the bee and live orthodoxy. Remember to like and subscribe and share. I'll see you all next week.